I've been working late nights for almost 3 years. After midnight, the building is mine. The security desk downstairs, the hum of the servers, the elevator that opens on its own sometimes, I know all of it. I stopped being scared of this place a long time ago. Until the night I counted the cameras. There are 14 cameras in the building's surveillance system. I know because I helped set them up when I first started. 14. I could name every single one. Lobby entrance, parking level, break room, server corridor. I had the layout memorized. So when I opened the monitoring panel at 11:52 p.m. on a Tuesday and saw 15 feeds, I assumed it was a glitch. It wasn't a glitch. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I work in IT infrastructure for a mid-sized logistics company, 12 floors, around 200 employees during business hours. After 8 p.m., maybe 4 or 5 people remain, cleaning staff, one security guard named Davy, and usually me. My job involves routine system checks, server maintenance, network monitoring, boring work, quiet work. I genuinely enjoy it. There's something about an empty building at night that feels honest. No performance. No noise. Just the machines doing what they're supposed to do. I had no reason to be suspicious of anything. The company was stable. No layoffs, no internal conflicts. Nothing unusual in the logs. It was just another Tuesday night in November, and I was eating a cold sandwich at my desk on the 9th floor, running a scheduled backup, half watching the camera feeds on my secondary monitor the way I always do. That's when I noticed the extra feed. If you've ever felt that specific kind of unease, not fear exactly, just the quiet sense that something is wrong, you'll understand what happened next. If this is already making you uncomfortable, leave a comment below. Subscribe if you want to know how this ends. I promise you won't see it coming. The feed was in the bottom right corner of the grid. Small, dark, slightly different resolution from the others. A little sharper actually, which made it stand out even more on the monitor. I leaned forward without thinking. The angle was strange. Whoever had positioned that camera knew exactly what they were doing. It wasn't pointed at a door or a hallway or any of the usual surveillance targets. It was pointed at a desk, a specific desk, on the 9th floor, my desk. I sat very still for a moment. The sandwich was still in my hand. I set it down slowly, the way you move when you're not sure if what you're seeing is real and you don't want to startle it. The timestamp on the feed was live. 11:54 p.m. I could see myself on the screen, hunched slightly forward, staring at the monitor, exactly as I was in that moment. The latency was minimal. Whatever this camera was, it was active and transmitting in near real time. I opened the camera management system. This is a separate interface from the monitoring panel. It's where you register devices, assign IP addresses, configure recording schedules. I scrolled through the device list slowly. 14 cameras. Official records showed 14. The 15th wasn't in the system. I checked twice. Then a third time, using the search function, filtering by installation date, by floor, by device type. Nothing. Whatever was sending that feed wasn't registered anywhere in our infrastructure. It had no device ID in our logs, no installation record, no authorization ticket. Someone had placed a camera in my office, or near it, and routed the feed into our monitoring system without creating a single piece of documentation. That takes knowledge, specific internal knowledge. I stood up from my chair and looked around the room slowly. 9th floor, open plan layout. My desk was near the east window. The other workstations were empty, screens dark. The ceiling had the standard acoustic tile grid, the kind with recessed lighting and ventilation gaps. I looked at the gaps for a long time. I called Davy downstairs. He picked up on the second ring, his voice flat with boredom. I asked him if anyone had done any work on the 9th floor recently. maintenance, IT contractors, anything. He paused for a moment, then said he'd check the visitor log. He came back in less than a minute, nothing in the last 30 days. I thanked him, hung up, and sat back down. 12:09 a.m. I pulled up the recording history for the mystery feed. If it was routing through our system, there was a chance it had left a data trail even without a device registration. It had. The earliest timestamp I could find was from 22 days ago, a Thursday. I had been in that exact chair, at that exact desk, at 11:38 p.m. when the recording started. I had no memory of anything unusual that night. I'd just been working. 22 days. The camera had been there for 22 days before I noticed. I scrolled through the recordings slowly. Every night I had worked late, and I worked late often. There was footage, me reviewing documents, me on the phone, me eating at my desk, which I do more than I'd like to admit. Me leaning back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, thinking. The footage was continuous. No gaps, no interruptions. Whoever was receiving this feed had access to a fairly complete portrait of my working habits over 3 weeks. I thought about who could have done this. The building had a contracted IT security firm that handled physical installations. They had access, they had the technical knowledge, and they occasionally worked after hours. But they would have filed a work order. Every single visit was documented. Then I thought about who else had that level of system access. The list was short. Uncomfortably short. I opened the access logs for the camera management system, specifically who had logged into it in the past 30 days. The logs showed my credentials, my supervisor's credentials, and one other account. An account that belonged to an employee who had left the company 8 months ago. I stared at that username for a long time. Marcus. He had worked in network infrastructure before resigning, quietly. No exit drama, no farewell email. One day he was here, the next he wasn't. I'd barely known him. The last login from his credentials was 11 days ago, 1:17 a.m. I checked if his account had been deactivated after his departure. It had. The deactivation was logged, time-stamped, everything correct. His access should have been dead for 8 months, and yet there it was. 1:17 a.m., 11 days ago, his username, authenticated. I should have called someone. I know that now. I should have picked up the phone and called my supervisor, or IT security, or even just Davy downstairs. Instead, I kept pulling threads, the way you do when you already know the answer is going to be worse than the question. I cross-referenced his login timestamp with the camera feeds from that night. At 1:17 a.m., 11 days ago, while his credentials were active in our system, the camera pointed at my desk had been repositioned slightly. I could tell because the angle in the recordings from before that date showed a slightly wider frame, more of the room, less of me specifically. After that night, the frame had tightened, centered. Whoever accessed the system at 1:17 a.m. had also adjusted the camera remotely, or had been in the building. I called Davy again. It was 12:41 a.m. by then. I asked him to check the building entry logs for 11 days ago, specifically the overnight hours. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. He said the entry logs for that night were incomplete. There had been a system error. The card reader on the service entrance had malfunctioned between midnight and 3 a.m. No record of who had come in or out during that window. I asked if that kind of malfunction was common. He said in 3 years, he'd never seen it happen before. I hung up the phone. The building was completely silent. I could hear the ventilation system, the faint electrical hum of the servers 3 rooms away, and nothing else. I looked at the feed on my secondary monitor, the unauthorized one, feed 15, and watched myself sitting at my desk, in real time, in a building that may or may not have been empty. I reported everything the following morning. IT security, HR, building management. They reviewed the logs, confirmed what I'd found, and opened an investigation. 3 weeks later, they told me they hadn't been able to determine how the access credentials had been compromised or who had installed the device. They found no camera, no physical hardware, just the feed, which had stopped transmitting the night I discovered it. Marcus, the former employee, was contacted. He denied any involvement. He had an alibi for the night of the 1:17 a.m. login. The investigation stalled. I still work there. Different desk now, facing the door away from the windows. I asked to have the ceiling tiles in my section inspected. They found nothing unusual, which doesn't comfort me as much as it probably should. What I keep returning to isn't the camera or the credentials or even the missing entry logs. It's the footage I watched that night. 22 days of recordings. In most of them, I'm working, eating, thinking, normal things. But on the 14th day of recordings, 8 days before I found it, there's a moment at around 2:40 a.m. where I stand up from my desk, walk toward the east window, and stand there for almost 4 minutes looking out at the city. I have no memory of doing that.